Hey guys, thanks for checking out Adventure Kindness Wellness here with Mike G. Today, I want to tell you a little bit of my story of one of the most challenging moments I went through in my life and the great things that come on the other side of getting through and overcoming challenges, which this lesson I'm sure will apply to your life. It applies to pretty much everyone. First I want to preface this with, although the challenges that I'm going to tell you about now were some of the hardest things I've dealt with in life, I still find huge gratitude in knowing that that was the hardest thing I went through, because I see so many things in the world, people without running water, without electricity, war, household abuse. I mean, there's so many things out there that make the hardships that most of us go through pale in comparison. So, as we go through challenges, I think it also helps us develop gratitude. So let me get into my story, and I'll give you a few of the lessons that I've learned that I hope apply to you and you feel take value from this. I've followed a less traditional path than many in my adult life. I did go to university. It probably wasn't necessarily the direction that was best for me, but that's what I did, and I'm very glad that I did have that opportunity. Went to become a video producer. Worked for about a year and a half doing anything I could to survive out in Colorado Springs and Denver, trying to kickstart my video production career, and then I got the perfect video production job out on the West Coast. I was flying around, sometimes in clients' Learjets, going all over the country, learning great skills, doing what I thought I wanted to do with my career, and a few years in, realized that that's not the path that I wanted to go with my life. Not as somebody's employee behind the camera. So came home. I'd been working on starting a business, and the amount of challenges getting through that, man, I drove myself crazy. So I'd spent several years developing a business concept prior to YouTube, which was basically real estate videos. At the time, it was a groundbreaking thing. Had invested a lot in a website, encountered a bunch of challenges. It took forever to get going. Finally got it going and moved back home. I turned in my notice at my fancy West Coast video producer job and came back home to Wichita, Kansas, which I am grateful for this place, but it's also not my favorite place in the world. So came back for 4 years, developed some really amazing things, had some really, really, really good stuff going on. I had over 30,000 rental units that I had produced a locator service for, where I'm bringing leads to people to rent apartments. I had teamed up with a brokerage. They had 42 agents. I was producing videos for their agents. There was a lot of good things, but there were also a lot of deficits that myself and my business partner just didn't quite have covered. At the end of the day, I had lost all my money, lost my credit, and it was time to throw in the towel. I had gone too far, and realized, I'm pursuing this path of entrepreneurship, but I'm doing a business that I no longer liked. I didn't enjoy the real estate agency brokerage interactions with customers, clients, other agents. It wasn't where I belonged. Eventually packed up. My long-term vision and goal was to land out in Breckenridge, Colorado, and take all the knowledge and skills I had and go and produce snowboarding videos and build a better version of the business that I had created there, and own a home and really create a foundation in that place. So shut everything down, packed up, left town, and started bartending out there in Breckenridge, which, if you don't know, it's a real busy ski town, and it changed an awful lot during the 7 years I was there, but we'll save that for another video. So I got there, start living my dream. I'm snowboarding every day. I'm pouring drinks. I had a roommate that was a professional level snowboarder. We were producing videos together. And then a few months in, I was actually being trained by a guy who was on the Latvian Olympic team, or trials team. I don't think he ever actually made it. But I was evolving quick at the same time. I was 32. I was riding with these, 18, 20-year-old kids who were pro level, and me, I was an good old boy motocrosser that just liked catching air and was just wild and crazy. I'd hit some pretty big jumps in my life, 50, 60 footers before, and just got a little cocky and came up a little short on a really, really big jump, broke my ankle in 7 places, and ended up not walking for the next 5 months. That was where things started getting pretty challenging. You can't bartend, you can't generate an income on a job you need to walk around if you can't walk. So I went from a job that was putting enough tip money in my pockets to, to keep gas in the car and pay rent. I wasn't getting ahead by any means, but I was sustaining. And that went away. I ended up being a cashier at minimum wage. Now, during this time, housing is always a huge problem, I believe, in probably any of these destination markets. Housing was extremely challenging in Breckenridge when I moved out there in 2014. Excuse me. And when I left in 2021, it was Airbnb had taken over the entire county. Their jobs used to not allow overnight parking, and now that's what they use to try to coax people in, because nobody can live in a condo or a house or an apartment anymore. You got to live in your car if you want to live in Breckenridge, Colorado, and work out there. So I get hurt. I'm making almost no money. I was actually living in a mobile home with a friend I had made bartending. He had a motor home, not a mobile home, a motor home, probably 30-footer. It was pretty nice. And so I was living in this motor home, and then my friend Kai, who owned this, we got kind of towards the end of the season, and he said, it's about time for me to head out. So he hits the road. Well, I've got a manual transmission car. I still can't walk. I've got that boot, and it kills me to push the clutch, but somehow I was pushing the clutch enough to shift gears, or so I thought. So I'm at the gas station right over close to the place called Tiger Run where we lived with the motorhome, filling up my car. Kai's over there filling up his motorhome, and I pull out to get on the road. As he's taking a right turn, I was taking a left at this intersection, and something happened with my car as I see the motorhome driving off. Now, I was getting ready to go on the road. I was going to go back home. I was going to maybe take a little loop first, go stop by Hot Springs, visit a friend down in Colorado Springs. Well, as Kai's driving off, my clutch goes out in my car. So I had nowhere to live. My clutch is out. I can't walk. I don't have money. And by the way, I had an Italian Greyhound. I had a short-haired dog with me, so I couldn't even get on a bus and go home. And I remember, so I made it across. Car was stuck in first or second gear. Made it into a parking lot. Left Wilson, my dog, in the car for a minute, and it was a nice day out. I loved that dog to death. Took great care of him, but I just left him sitting in the car for a minute. Walked over where there was a bench, at a little restaurant called Soup's On. I sat down and just realized, I was like, man, I am totally screwed. My family was in a different state. My parents were on vacation. I did not want to ruin their vacation with this. And that's where, one of those things of gratitude that we'll probably talk about more in a minute. But I realized even in my absolute worst situation here, if it was bad enough, if I was desperate enough, I could have called and had somebody rescue me. And there's a lot of people in the world who don't have that. So even at my very most challenging moment that I've experienced, I still had somebody to come save me if I needed it. And that's something I'm extremely grateful for, even to this day. But, I get back there, I sit down, I got some tears coming out of my eyes because I don't know what to do. And, I got a tow truck to tow the car over to the to a shop who was really awesome. They let me park it there for a couple months while I was figuring this out. I started making calls. I got put up by a church for a little while, which was pretty awesome. Great people. They didn't know me. I wasn't a member there. They just saw an injured person in need and selflessly decided to help, and that was really great. Eventually ended up finding some friends who had someone when moving out, because that's the only way you get a rental in Summit County. If you find somebody else who has a rental and has a room open up. So eventually I ended up over there at the buddy's place, and a lot of challenges ensued past that. But let's go even further. I was limping for years. This ankle will never be the same. I didn't lose stability in it, whatever that really means. I mean, the x-rays looked pretty gnarred up and broken up, but I didn't have surgery. And in all honesty, everybody I know that has had ankle surgery healed a lot quicker. But on the other side of that challenge, when I was confronted with other challenges in life, when we went through this crazy moment in history a couple years ago, early in 2020, it kind of didn't seem that bad, because I'd been through something that for me was a lot more challenging. I was like, man, I got a roof over my head. I got running water. Sadly, my little dude had passed away, previously. So during that really crazy moment in time, more than anything, I was just grateful, stacked up on rice and beans because I didn't know what was going on. Nobody really did at that time. And, I was even married. We had a modest condo, on a river over, right next to the Copper Mountain Key Slope. That was in Frisco, Colorado. And, at that moment, I just realized that things could be so much worse. But if I hadn't been through something worse, then that moment would have affected me way more. There was when I was living at that house with this broken ankle and I was non-weight bearing, a bear kept getting into our trash every day and slinging it all over the side of the mountain. And I'm big on sustainability and keeping things clean, and it's nice to walk out of your beautiful mountain location and not see trash everywhere. So it became a daily deal for a while where I had to crawl around on my hands and knees and pick up trash from the bear. Man, those guys, the bears, if you haven't been around them, they're one of my buddies called them big raccoons. He was from Alaska. They would come inside of the hotel and get into the trash and just take off running when they hear somebody coming. So, now I have come to an interesting turning point in life, and through these other challenges, it just makes me want to double down and go harder, because I have come to the realization that for my path, trading hours for dollars in the same manner my parents did is not going to produce the same outcome for me as it did for them. And I've been home now for a little over a year, due to housing in the Summit County area. Surprise, surprise. I finally got to a point where I couldn't find a place, and it wasn't worth the juice. Wasn't worth the squeeze anymore. I'd had my fun. 7 years living in ski paradise is great, but I think I'm ready for some beaches and some palm trees now. So I've been home for a little over a year. I have this amazing but very challenging opportunity to make a lot of money with a business that one of my childhood friends owns. I've been working with other long-term friends. I've maintained great relationships, and I've realized the value of reliability. So I think I'm a really good, reliable resource for these friends, although I don't charge them anything close to what I'm worth, because they're helping me keep on my feet and not having to go try to figure out a job stocking groceries or sitting at the desk overnight at a gym or something. So I've had good friends that have kept me busy, and at the same time, I'm cutting them smoking deals, and they're getting paid for my work too. And I look at this like, I see so much potential here with this one business, but I get this huge sinking feeling in my gut when I say, like, man, if this is successful, I could be making a lot of money, locked into a life that I don't want, living in a place I don't want to be, working with a business that has nothing to do with any of my aptitudes or interests, but it could also provide that stability that I'm yet to find, in a professional capacity. But I've realized that I've got all the right skills. I've worked in internet marketing. I've worked in video production, off and on both of these over a couple decades. I'm not used to being in front of the camera, and you can probably tell through this. I'll be able to look back at this someday and be like, man, this dude is just rambling on. But at the same time, I see that I'm being confronted with a challenge now to either continue the anxiety that I've had for nearly 20 years, trying to beg other people to let me trade my hours for dollars so I can fit into a box where my skills and aptitudes don't work the best, so I can pursue a mission that isn't mine and produce an outcome that I don't care about for anything other than a paycheck. I've got all the right things to not get sucked into that, and I might have to make myself a little uncomfortable for a while. I hope my credit doesn't get hurt, but that's really the worst case scenario. If I end up living on credit cards and I get behind on payments, I don't think that's a real problem. When you talk to a kid that's starving, or somebody that's in poverty or abuse, or somebody living in a war-torn country, you think they give a crap about a credit score? Come on, there's real things to worry about. I just had to put a brand new engine in my vehicle. I didn't expect that, man. That's got some of this anxiety going. But I know that this right now, this is a moment that's a challenge that I can either choose to look straight in the face and know that I'm going to overcome it. I haven't had a dedication like this for almost a decade since I started my last business. And that business had basically 3 different renditions of what it is that spanned nearly a decade of my life. A whole lot of lessons learned there, and something that I've really come to appreciate, and I hope that this message has some value for you. Really think about it. As you spend time in life as a professional, as an adult, even pursuing your interests outside of work, you get experience and skills and knowledge. And sometimes, outside of the resume, people have a really hard time quantifying to themselves or respecting all that they've developed for themselves. And I know that's something that I don't look at all of my skills and my capabilities now. I haven't with as much respect for what they really are as they deserve. I recognize now that I am like 10 people in one if I stop trying to find other people to work with to fill in the blanks of where I'm not at. I don't need somebody else's product or service. I don't need somebody else's brand. I need to build my own brand and then create my own products and services from that brand. So, I don't think that I would be dedicating myself to this in this way now if I hadn't had that challenge of being unable to walk, of having nowhere to live, of having that dog I had to keep warm and healthy, of not having any escape from a situation that I created and put myself into. The difference between this and that was just survive through it. This is work hard to overcome, work hard to create a path for a future, because as one of my guys I like to follow, a fellow stunt rider, Nasty Nate Jr., he says, what worked for your parents isn't going to work for you. And he's right. I don't think that it is for a very large amount of us anymore. And even some of you that feel like you're in a fairly specialized skill set, AI is here and things are going to change for you a lot too. I don't think AI can take over my capability to interact with the world like this right now. We're seeing things happen fast. I mean, we're watching it create music and art and everything else, so who knows? But I can't think of anything that I could go out and do, any job I could get that is going to be protected from the evolution of what we have to come over the next decade. There's so many crazy things happening in the world now. The news cycle just keeps speeding up more and more and more. It's really hard to predict much. And to me, even if I have a stable job with a stable company, my livelihood is more at risk from external factors when I'm depending on somebody else to be able to pay me. And with a brand like this, I don't have to have staff. I don't have to have a building. I don't have overhead. I mean, my merchandise is going to be shipped from a different location and printed on demand. I'm not going to have any overhead. So there's all these great things that are out here. And this is a really weird, uncomfortable moment, but I'm already moving forward. So now the only real concern is, does my credit get hurt along the way? So, at times when I do wake up anxious, like, what am I going to do today? Nothing gives me more anxiety than thinking about all the amount of time I can waste pursuing crap jobs that maybe I don't even come up with one over the next month. And I wasted all that time where I could be here creating content, or I could be working with one of my friends and making videos for their business, even though it's, that's going to be a day or two of work and then it's done. But I feel like the sacrifice of that time and that energy is at such a high risk, because let's say I go and get myself an assistant manager job at Walmart for a while. All that's doing is preventing me from getting where I need to go with this. I'm not even saying Walmart wants a 40-year-old guy with a college degree to come be an assistant manager. It's kind of funny, when you have really good skills and a really good resume, sometimes it kind of hurts you, And one thing that was nice about Summit County, there was no housing, but jobs were plentiful. And if you didn't take the cost of living into accountability, they paid good money. I think grocery stockers overnight now, they're probably getting about $30 an hour out there. At the same time, if you want to rent a condo, let's say you're fortunate enough to find a $4,000 a month studio, well, you've got to have $12,000 up front, plus be ready to pay another $4,000 in 30 days. So you pretty much have to have access to $16,000 to get the smallest studio out there that you're fighting with 100 other people for. So at the same time, if I need money, okay, I can go here, I can do this, I can go there, I can do that. I can get a job in 2 seconds. And here, the only thing I know that I can get a job with quick will put me in an environment that I absolutely do not want to be in. I don't want to be around pouring drinks and serving people anymore. Not only just for fun, or because it's a demeaning thing that I don't enjoy doing. I don't want to be around that alcohol, because that is just a bad influence. Gluttony and consumption, and I envision the best version of me being completely alcohol free and 100% cool with that. I'm not there yet. I drink a whole lot less than I used to, but as someone who has a goal of completely eliminating alcohol from their life, being a bartender or server it seems so counterproductive. So, I know that only a few people are probably hanging out this long, and thank you guys by coming along this far. The message for you, again, maybe you haven't sustained or survived a real major challenge in life. And for me, I think before I had, that led to some depression. Back in the day, people were out hunting and gathering and protecting their families and doing badass things and feeling productive and being confronted with real challenges and overcoming them. And, in a life of having everything comfortable and everything's taken care of, it, I think, really can lead to people feeling depressed, because you're not confronted with that challenge. You don't have to overcome things. What's the most important thing growing up? Getting your homework in on time for most people. And again, I came from a great life that I am very grateful for, But in society, in general, man, I think not being confronted with more discomfort early in our lives can lead to some depression. And I don't think the military would have been the right path for me, but I do think there was probably some extreme value in the challenges and basic training and, being deployed, and coming back, I guarantee, with a different perspective and gratitude. So what I want you to think about, if you haven't really confronted some really gnarly challenges, seek them out for yourself. One of the things that I've done for myself is become really dedicated to going to the gym. I'm never in there less than 5 days a week. I'm never in there less than 2 hours at a time. And it's crazy how much of a push it was at first, but then it became a habit. And, it's one of the best places of solitude for me. I listen to my music. I think, I play on my phone quite a bit. I'm not in a rush. I could get out of there in half the time, but I enjoy taking 15 to 20 minutes to warm up. I'll just throw in an extra set here or there if I feel like I've got a little more in me. And that's one of the ways that I've pursued challenging myself. This right here, this is the number one way. And I see it as it's a non-negotiable. I have to do whatever it takes to make this work. So when I think about everything I've got going for myself, all the skills I've developed, all the aptitudes that I have, the experience that I have, literally the most scary thing I can think of is wasting my time doing something else other than pursuing my passion and my mission that I'm on. And I'm getting ready to come into some uncomfortable moments. These podcasts are going to look a lot better with time. I've always been good behind the camera and never really planned on being in front of it. But, let's go get uncomfortable with this, because those challenges in the past have prepped me for a moment like this to finally take everything I've learned and use it in a direction that will be beneficial for me, will become sustainable and profitable, and will allow me to have a positive influence on the world, on community, and on others. Because ultimately that's the goal: adventure, kindness, and wellness. I want to bring other people into that culture that I'm creating for myself. So guys, thanks for hanging with me. Check back often. My main thing is telling long form stories that are edited well, that are shot well. And I'm learning to repaste them for YouTube, because my instincts coming from television and training videos are it's a little bit different. But fortunately, this is all, second nature to me. I can look at somebody else's video and, wow, I made it through 15 minutes and they didn't lose my interest for a second. Well, why is that? And I can break down what's happening. So check out my videos on my channel, because that's really my main focus. But these podcasts, I think, are going to become an important and integral part of this as time goes on, as I start to have guests, as I package my message a little better, and develop a true following. I know anybody that's watched this to this point, either the video auto-played and you haven't been able to click skip, or you are truly interested in the mission and seeing this begin. I can just imagine where this is going to be in 2 years, 5 years, and 10 years. It takes the time, the effort, and the dedication. And thanks again, like always, to Sean Cannell over at Think Media. Just got to push record. So thanks for following me on my mission of adventure, kindness, and wellness. I hope you go out and find some of those in the world for yourself and your life. And check back often for more content.